the difference between preppers and homesteaders is preppers are acting out of fear and homesteaders are acting out of hope.
Hello, everyone. This is Beautiful World Podcast. I'm Catherine Nelson, your host. I'm coming to you from Bundjalung country here in Australia. It is 7 a.m. in the morning. The sun has risen over the ocean. It's beautiful out. And I am here speaking with Arielle Crawford, fashion designer turned homestead queen. She is the founder of the Realness Preserve 501c3 nonprofit and co-founder of Texas Cob, a natural building and construction company. Welcome, Arielle.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you for having me.
So good to have you. Now, we are Instagram friends. Yeah, we've been on the journey. We've been on the Instagram plastic-free, zero waste, figuring it out journey online together. And it's so great to connect and hear from you this morning and afternoon for you. Can you give people an idea? Like most people would know you from your incredible Instagram, the Realness Preserve, and the offerings that you have on your property for apprenticeships and workshops and courses for people to learn natural building or homesteading or so many amazing lifestyle skills. Can you give people an idea of what you guys are up to today, where you live, a little introduction to what you're doing?
Sure. Yeah, so we're in Kingsbury, Texas. We're about an hour southeast of Austin, on the Blackland Prairie. And we have a natural building construction company and school. And so everything we do out here on our 5 acres is natural building. And that's also what we teach. And then we also do all of the adjacent lifestyle skills, heritage skills. So for me, that's sewing and cooking and sourdough and cloth diapering and reclaiming a lot of these practices. None of this is anything new. All of our ancestors have lived in earthen homes. All of our ancestors knew how to build their own houses. This is something that, relatively speaking, a lot of these skills are only recently lost or forgotten, or sort of exchanged for convenience and cheap and, these things that have sort of inundated our world and our, views of consumerism. And so we're basically just like, no, we're going to do it ourselves. And we're really uniquely positioned in Texas because we basically can do whatever we want, unlike a lot of places that have a lot stricter codes for permitting for these structures. We literally just do whatever we want. And that's commercially as well. Like we pretty rarely have to pull permits or even get engineers involved. We do everything to International Building Code. But on our own property, we're like, oh, if we can dream it, we can literally do it. And that's pretty much what we're doing out here. We live in a small community of people. And yeah, so what that looks like on a daily basis is the guys, the construction company goes to work. They do residential and commercial builds. I run the company. I'm a stay-at-home work from home mom. And then I run the whole homestead. So the animals, all the cooking, the cleaning, and then running the actual business. So all the design, all the admin, all the bookkeeping, social media, it's basically all of the soft skill side of the business falls to me. And and then running the homestead. So taking care of the land, taking care of the garden, and then all of the adjacent skills to that, canning, preserving, just making sure that we can eat and live as healthy and clean as possible on our little oasis. That's what the Realness Preserve is. It's an oasis in a world that is continually more corrupt. We're just trying to keep it real.
That is like true freedom, sovereignty. You saw the vision and you're seeing it through. And it's so inspiring to just kind of bask in the glory of this actual lived solution, like it can work.
I can. And that's why we're sort of like proof of concept. We're like, see, you can do this. And we teach people how. And that's part of our, our mission is like, it's not just us that can do this. You can come, we can teach you, and then you can go and do it at home too.
Ooh, so important to make these solutions accessible. I think people are like, oh, buy land and live with community, grow my own food. It just feels so out of reach, especially owning property, trying to deprogram our capitalist minds or consumer minds of, I need to own it first and get it perfect, and then I can invite the community in. How do you make it accessible? Like, what are some of the ways that you encourage people that come to you that are like, how do I even begin?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I began in my apartment, and when I first went plastic free, I was living in the East Village in New York City, and just pretty much cold turkey went plastic free. And And then I found your account, and and still continue to be really, a hero on my journey. Like, and that's what happens is you make this change, and then you find people on the path ahead of you
Mm,
that have already figured out how to navigate it and are shining a light for you. And that's one of the, beautiful parts of Instagram is we're like, oh, we're not alone. And we can plug into this global community of
mm,
people that are wanting to live the same way that we do and share tips and share, the trials and tribulations of our journeys. So yeah, I think really, I mean, I'll use the analogy of Burning Man. Like, just because it's all going to burn doesn't mean we shouldn't make it beautiful. Like, just because you live on rented land or in an apartment doesn't mean you shouldn't try to have a garden and try to have a worm bin and go to the farmer's market and practice the lifestyle where you are, wherever you are. And that's really how I began, was in a series of, I had backyard chickens in San Francisco. And I just always was like, I'm just going to do it to whatever scale I can until I hit the ceiling. And I always
mm.
did. And then venture out and see, okay, what is the next step look of scaling, and sort of, following the breadcrumbs of until I got my own land. And that was
Mm.
not a linear or an easy journey. And there were many, if anybody that's followed me for long enough can see all the, not going to call them fails, but I've thought land was mine, and I thought I was on my way, or I thought I was home. And then the bottom fell out. And every time, just like learning how to pick ourselves back up again wasn't for nothing. I think there's a hazing initiation that you go through if you really want to live this life, like in homesteading. And especially like as millennials who didn't inherit anything, don't have a trust fund and don't have land and don't have family property. Like, it does seem really inaccessible. And when I set out on my land journey, I had no business looking for land. I didn't have any money. I didn't have any, resources to be able to procure that. But yeah, like I said, none of it happened in this like linear or logical way. I just trusted the process and just kept going until I got there. The byproduct of starting over again and again is resilience, which is indispensable to this lifestyle. The resilience that's built within that process of having to start over and over again mirrors the day to day of what this lifestyle really looks like. It's going to require resilience, and it's going to make sure that you really want it over and over and over. You can't homestead, um you can't be an entrepreneur, you can't be a creator in this world without resilience.
Oh my gosh, it's so true. I think I actually like teared up when you were saying just like your backyard chickens in San Francisco, and just like where you just start where you are, it's so we are so comfortable. We're so convenienced, even when I have to clean my coffee machine, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to pause my morning routine to clean this thing. Like, it should just work. I should just get my coffee, and the building of resilience in these little micro moments. Or on my property I live on now, we come in through a gate, and I have to open the gate, get out of my car, open the gate, drive in, close the gate. And I remember initially being like, ooh, that's really going to be tough. And now I love it. I greet the land. I don't just like get out of my car and run up into the house. I arrive. I arrive home, and I get out of my car and I smell the air, and I see what's happened on the land, that day, or like how the land is that moment. It's been raining a lot. So I step over the puddle and I walk through the grass and over the gravel, and I have to reach through the passion fruit tangle and open the gate and like push it aside. And I always get to see, if I'm coming home at night, I get to see the stars. And it's actually just this like beautiful, enriching experience that initially I thought I was going to dread. And it's so hilarious witnessing ourselves in these lazy or just like overly comfortable states of mind or being, where we have to catch ourselves and just try these things. And once we try them, oh, this is actually so beautiful. My trash bin is so much more tidy because I compost now. What a luxury. I don't have flies and maggots. Amazing, because I'm putting my food scraps into the compost or the worm bin. Or you get chickens and you're like, I have these beautiful animals who I have relationship with, my little friends. These things that initially seem so hard. Or we're growing food, and my son gets to witness the states of a plant flowering and then fruiting. And then he knows where food comes from. Like, it's so gorgeous. These tiny little, and we're not on a big property, but we can still have these experiences. So I'm so grateful for you sharing that. This is exactly why I needed to do this podcast, because I was kind of like, fuck. I need to hear from the people. I need to get that fire inside myself again, because it can be like, oh no. But before we go into more of that kind of thing, can you give us your life story? How did you end up in New York? You had a sustainable fashion in New York back when that wasn't even, people were probably like, what's even sustainable? And like just anything that you want to touch on in your journey to Texas.
Okay, sure. Well, I'm from West Texas originally, and it is my heartland. I don't know that I always knew that I'd come back, but I had a revelation about coming back to Texas when, and I shouldn't say back. When I came to Texas, it's not like I knew anyone again. I was a child when I left Texas, and I don't have any family here or anything. So, during COVID, when I was living in New York, I had a revelation about, exactly what I should be doing next. And I pretty much just followed that verbatim, and I sold my company. I had a sustainable fashion brand in New York. I also taught sustainable manufacturing at FIT. And so through COVID, I pivoted to to being a mask maker. And so I was doing organic cotton, Texas grown cotton masks with merino wool filters. And that got us through. And then teaching remotely for FIT, and, living in a tiny apartment. And there were months that would go by when like I wouldn't see anybody, during COVID. It was incredibly isolating. And I was still working. Like I was riding my bike through the garment district every day, like, and the factories were still, at a low per. But it was, and I am grateful for that time. I think so many of us had revelations during COVID. It was kind of like a game of musical chairs. The music turned off, and I was like, I don't have a seat, I'm fucked. And I just started, it really made me, I think we all sort of reckoned with our own mortality. And so I took a baby step and moved to Brooklyn, and, started a garden and everything. And that was at that point, I basically, I hit the ceiling there again. And I just remember looking around my apartment and being like, I don't know how the plumbing works. I don't know what's in these walls. I don't know how electrical works here. And I just sort of like had this creeping imposter syndrome, where I had been, it's really easy in cities to sort of bury that and stay really busy all the time, socially and with my career. But during COVID, it just got so quiet. And I started looking around, and I was like, I think it's time, to move on. Uh, and so, yeah, I had a revelation. I had a vision, in a hot tub up in upstate New York, with some friends, on LSD. And I saw exactly what I'm doing now, which is pretty crazy.
Wow.
I just like looked up at the sky, and I just did this like mental exercise of, what if I wiped the slate clean? Like what if I wasn't attached to the way that to the brand or whatever? And it literally was like verbatim what's in front of me now. And I didn't know what natural building was at that time. I didn't know what cob was. I'd never even heard of it. And then like 2
And you
days
still
later,
saw Cobb. You saw
I saw
natural.
cob. I saw cob. Yeah.
Oh.
And I was like, I don't know what that is. But by the morning I had like fully grieved of letting go of everything. I was like, okay, I'm moving to Texas. Like I don't, and that's very much how I've always moved. Like I've lived all over, and it's always like, boom, there's a vision. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. I don't, the same plastic was the same way. It was one night, one vision. And the next day it was like, it's done.
I do know. I do know that one. I know that one.
A lot of people are like, baby steps. And I'm like, no, there's no baby steps in my life. It's all just like wham, bam, I'm like already doing it and figuring it out. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are like, so when I moved to Texas, I moved fully off grid. And I didn't know anything about like solar power or, water collection or anything. And I didn't even have internet. So wasn't even able to watch YouTube or anything. I just like figured it out.
Wow.
And I think that we all have that within ourselves. We can all figure it out. Like in solar power, I got a book, and I just like followed the book until one day I had power. And it took weeks of me like crying over this book. and like doing numbers and figuring out, um, and then one day I had power and it was like, it was this incredible, I literally felt empowered, I was like, it was amazing. It was still like one of the coolest days of my life. Um, and yeah, so like gardening and permaculture and all these things, I think, and even like we teach workshops, right? But they're very technical, and really what we're trying to impart on people and what the Realness Preserve is like, my stance is like, you don't really need a teacher. You just have to figure it out. Like you have to
Mm,
get the tools that you need and see the vision and then figure out how to get there.
mm,
And I think we all have it in ourselves to do that. Like we're all gardeners. We all come from a lineages of people that grew their own food and preserved and canned, and it's all inside of us. It's all
mm.
genetic memory. And I think removing like all the obstacles, like I moved off grid by a creek with no internet and I slept on a cot by a fire for like months
Wow.
before I, figured out baby steps of how do I get more comfortable? How do I make myself more comfortable? Um, and like without all the distractions, and without, there was like suddenly no imposter syndrome because
Mm,
it was like, I'm just going to figure it out. And it was like the very basics. And once you learn how to grow food and you learn how to harness the sun and you learn how to, um, you know, get water out of a well from a windmill and whatever, like it feels like the bottom isn't so far under me anymore. It's hard to describe, but like when I fall, it doesn't, I just have a different understanding of the world now that
mm,
feels like I don't really experience imposter syndrome or even depression that much anymore. Um, because I'm just working with my hands all day on very tangible stuff. Even though I do all the like soft skills for our business, my life is still incredibly physical day to day.
mm,
And I think just like we also, our property is decentralized. This is my clubhouse, and it's really just like kind of a bed den, and then the kitchen is over there, way up there, and then the bathroom's over there, and
in different buildings.
different buildings.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
And
Yeah.
so that means every time I do anything, I have to walk in the sunshine or in the
Mm,
rain or in the morning or at night. And, the combination of light and exercise between
mm,
everything that we do, it's just like becomes baked into the lifestyle where I don't need a cold plunge. Or a red light mask or like all these tech devices or going to classes or whatever, because it's
mm,
just baked in. It's just all one thing. And I think that
mm.
always what I wanted life to feel like not compartmentalized, but all of it just one thing. And I feel like we're getting closer and closer to that all the time.
Wow, you probably have created a blue zone,
Yeah,
like
that's
amongst everything else
exactly
you've
right.
created.
And that's like, yeah, really the medicine is microclimates.
Mm,
People are all freaked out, but like I think all we can really do is create our microclimates and
yeah.
then plug into other people that are doing similar things and
Mm.
just mind their own business.
Preach. Yeah. I mean, I remember, I remember in my like in my activism journey, finally joining Break Free from Plastic, this global alliance of organizations working on plastic pollution. And one of the three pillars of this strategy was local beach cleans, local community, local campaigns. And my mind just was so blown by the fact that, oh, wow. The global issue of plastic pollution is actually solvable by going to our local beach and cleaning our local beach. We're not going to ban plastics globally, sadly. Like, oh my gosh, what the hell? Like, what? That's crazy. But it's not happening. And so all we can do is work on our local community to use less plastics, or our local community to ban plastics, or our local community to boycott balloons, or our local community to bolster the farmers and the farmers markets, and bolster, composting within the community, or get out and clean the beach locally, or there's like a illegal dumping, go and clean it up. I just was flabbergasted that was this global, alliance. The strategy was, oh, just do your part locally. I was like,
Uh,
that is so beautiful because it is so accessible. I think you're so right. Like we get so panicked about the world, but if we can create peace and contentment and joy and relationship with nature in our own lives, we're all so much better off for it. There's so many ways to do things, but I really hear you in that the microclimate, we should be doing that, all of us anyways. No matter what happens in the world, if we're all growing our own food and know where our water comes from and know how to harness the sun, like I just love that so much as I'm like basking in the morning sunlight. Then we're better off. We can feed our families and we know where the water, and we know our farmers. I find that, like you said, this empowerment, and we're cultivating resiliency so that we're not so derailed by
Yeah.
events.
Yeah. Political events.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't want to be taken on this roller coaster, then you can get off the roller coaster.
Yeah.
Not as sensational as I too, was highly involved in activism. I was a lobbyist in DC, and it feels good, right? You feel like you're fighting the good fight, and you are, but on some levels, it's just another distraction from like doing the real hard work at home.
Yeah. I think these days, like, I'm so grateful for the activists who are, fighting on the front lines. And I'm so grateful for the lobbyists who are standing up to the politicians. It's like, thank you. And also, if you get to a point where you burn out and you
Yes.
cannot do that any longer, go to nature, start growing food. But you skipped the lobby job in your life trajectory. Can we go to that?
A lot of steps.
Many lifetimes.
Many lifetimes, yeah. Yeah, I lobbied for CCL, Citizens Climate Lobby. I founded the fashion industry action team. So, within Citizens Climate Lobby, which is a massive initiative for lobbyists, really wrangling like local lobbying efforts and going to DC twice a year. They didn't have a fashion industry, team. And so I created this team and they're still going, which is great. And, and then, yeah, like you said, like I'm super grateful for the people that are on those lines and doing that work because it takes all of us. It's going to take working at every level of the stream, upstream, downstream. And like you said, if you get tired of working upstream, then, figure out where you feel like you have the most power. This is everything that I'm doing here is sort of like an experiment in controlling my environment. I just want to have as much control as possible over what my community is exposed to, And I know the world is only getting crazier, or we're only being more exposed to, we have more information than ever.
Mm.
But at the end of the day, like I know I don't have I don't have any control in the world, but I do at home. I can control what my family eats, where we live, what materials we wear, and that's about it. And my relationships. I can control the health of my relationships. And that's about it. And so that's what I'm going to focus on. And if at any point I'm given an opportunity to have more control, I'll take it.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like that's been something, going through a separation with my child's father and having to let go of control after being like so rigid and controlling about my plastic intake for over a decade. And then just having to be like, okay, see you later. Like, no idea what you're, I've really been grieving that this past year or two. Yeah, just like feeling in myself like I I didn't consent to this. Like this isn't I'm not, I've built this life and it's so controlled and I've figured it out and I can sustain it and I'm good at it and I love it and I feel so clean and good. And now my child, the most precious thing in the world that I'm like wanting to protect. And I know how, unfortunately, I know the science on how vulnerable children are, their little developing bodies to any plastic exposure, the tiniest, like 1 part per billion drop of an estrogen or an endocrine disrupting chemical can create obesity. There's so many studies and obesity being one of, a huge list of negative health impacts, from cancer to heart disease to
Autoimmune.
yeah, autoimmune, just like reproductive issues that are transgenerational, passed on to the grandchildren. So this piece about control, someone shared with me one time the serenity prayer, like God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I was just like, no, I was like, I will not accept that I cannot change this, like I will not accept that I cannot control it. So I was making all the meals and sending them to his dad's house and making snacks and sending them in the glass containers with the glass lids and
Uh-huh,
like
uh-huh.
and I'm getting, I'm sending the clothes, the organic, and I'm just like, what was that in the back in the corner of that video? Was that like a stuffed animal? Was that a polyester stuffed animal that I see? Like, is that a balloon? And I'm just like, wow, I am going to drive everybody crazy. There was like the stages of grief, like the anger, and then just having to let go of, like the whole parenting thing of what's more toxic, making a huge deal of what my child can and can't eat, and like, oh no, you can't eat that. No, there's artificial dyes. Don't eat that. And like being this helicopter parent, and they did develop an eating disorder or something, and I've heard that, they sneak off and they buy bags and bags of lollies and eat. And so I really had to sit with that and be like, okay, for this moment, how can I soften and kind of let go and surrender? And it was hard. It is hard. And
Sure.
also, I feel like it's finally given me this perspective and compassion for the rest of the world that was always like, hey, like, we can't do that. Like we can't quit plastics overnight. Like I can't do that. I've got 100 kids and my partner's not on board and I live here, I live in a food desert or I don't have access to farmer's market. And I was just like, just do it. Um, so I feel like everything kind of happens for a reason. And I so trust the soul contracts of my child's father, and my child chose us, and I'm learning and growing and healing and rising, every day from this. But I think it's been really humbling to try and support people ever you are, just baby steps, trying to get there. I keep thinking about how you landed. Like, I'd love to hear now about your land journey. It hasn't been easy for you. We go through these challenging periods, and it gives us the resilience that we need, that is required for the lifestyle we desire. And I'm so grateful to be going through what I'm going through because it's giving me the tools. It's expanding my range and my capacity to hold more so that I'm not derailed by something, like a rainstorm wiping out my veggie patch or something. It's like you have to have that to be able to dig deep and just get back out there and do the thing that the world needs and that your family needs and that you need. Yeah. Can you tell us about however much you feel comfortable or want to share about your land journey and the fails, and then how you got to this land you've now that was a trash dump, and how you took that and that those lemons and made lemonade.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. This is the third property in Texas that I started homesteading on. The first one, I was a ranch hand. I knew that I wasn't going to be there forever. It was a straight work exchange. And then I was introduced to this woman, and she had 1,500 acres in Central Texas and no heirs, and a big wool ranch. And she told me that if I work basically as an indentured servant for the rest of my life, then she would give me a little bit of land. And it made sense to me, right? Because I'm like, who needs 1,500 acres of land? And if I work for my whole life, then this is going to be how I get my land, right?
Mm,
It's all part of the plan, part of the vision. And also sort of like naively, trusting people, I think is it probably, I don't know. I'm definitely more discerning now.
mm,
I think just as a mother that kicked in, where I like don't trust anyone now. But at that time I was like, that sounds great. The world is perfect.
oh,
Not that I've been through like gods of trauma, but I still had this like, I don't know, sort of like naivety that where that sounded like, it could work. And it does work. There's actually a whole permaculture concept called SKIP. The term was coined by Paul Wheaton, who's big in the permaculture community, and it's skills to inherit property.
mm,
And basically, the idea is there's a lot of farmers that are, dying off, and they don't have any heirs that are even interested in taking over the practices of the land. So There's a whole like subsect of people who are finding land by basically interning with the older generation in exchange for something. So I was like, this is a thing. This is cool. And I did it. I did it for almost 2 years. And that's where I was. So I was single at the time. And that's was where I was like, but down by a little creek. Had a campfire and a cot and nothing else. And I was like an hour from civilization,
Wow.
which is 4x4 truck to do as well. And so I was like way, way, way out there. And I was working on this ranch every single day, shearing sheep, dipping sheep, fixing fences, just doing like, pretty like fixing barns, learning roofing, doing all sorts of, pretty intense manual labor and living off grid. I had no power. I had no running water. I had no hot water. I had no
Wow.
fridge. I was living out of a cooler with ice and still being plastic free.
Wow.
And anyway, long story short, it all fell through.
Sorry, can I ask, how did you go from fashion designer to caught fire? Like, what was the journey? Was it just that you had this hot tub vision and you were like, that is my path and I need to find it and I'm going to go no matter what, any sort of lead that is like, ooh, that's closer to that path I follow, no, even if I'm, getting eaten by mosquitoes on my cot.
Exactly right. I just took
Wow.
whatever need presented itself. And, there's some of it is probably a trauma response. I'm aware of that.
What do you
But
mean?
well, in reflection of like why I put myself through all of that, I think, as the eldest daughter and, my mom, like your mom passed, when I was 19. And my dad is an alcoholic and has been for a long time and has not been in the picture for a long, long time. And then I raised my two younger brothers and I've been on my own for a long time. And also just like super like over functioning.
Mm.
And, um, I think I was really like desperate for belonging. There was no home to go to. There was no land. I didn't have any other inn. And so I just sort of like put myself in the way of any charlatan that came by and was like, here, I have a little bit of land. And I wouldn't recommend that path, especially like, so after it all went down, I got pregnant and, this woman was older, single, never had a family, and she pretty much flipped out after I got pregnant and became this like super toxic figure where she was constantly like bullying me and eventually just making me feel like really unsafe. Eventually one day she was like, yeah, you guys have to leave.
Whoa.
I had, spent basically my life savings. At that point, we had built a cob kitchen, a cob outhouse. We had installed a well with a windmill. We had spent a lot of money and a lot of time out there developing property, putting in roads, putting in fences. Like we ran workshops to make money. We did a GoFundMe. I used every dime that I had saved from having a brand. And so we were literally on our asses and I was 7 months pregnant. It was 105 degrees every single day. And we had like no money. And I posted a reel. Does anybody, have any leads on housing? This is what's going on. And, we met this incredible woman, my dear friend Claire, through this process. And she was like, come and live in my pool house in Austin until you get back on your feet. We got a job building a cop house and we just like kept working our way back up until we rented a little house to give birth in. And, just kept following the breadcrumbs to where we are now. But just to like back up 1 second, when I posted the reel of like what happened, I'm not kidding, hundreds of people tell me that the same thing happened to them. So I like definitely don't recommend the skip program. I don't
Wow.
think I know that land ownership is a really sensitive subject in our world. And it's hard to talk about because, we're all on indigenous land and we're white. And, a lot of people, with the land, but even when I was doing this and I was living all off grid, people were like, land back. And I was like, it's not even my land. I can't, I'm just doing the best I can. And like, if people are still shooting you down for trying or even just trying, right? But anyway, I I found out that a lot of people have been bamboozled basically in this search for, specifically millennials who, don't have an in to get housing or land. I just don't recommend building and spending any amount of money that you would be uncomfortable losing on land
Mhm.
that's don't own, or you don't
Wow.
have a trust, or you don't have some sort of protection. I learned so much through this process. And when we got this land, I didn't build anything, or we didn't spend a dime until it was in a trust, until it had like I learned everything about trusts, about, the legal framework of the best way to protect assets. That was the takeaway from that whole experience was, okay, especially now that I have a child, how do I
Mm.
protect everything that we're building so that, I can pass it on, and so that anybody can't just come and take it away,
Mm.
the government, it could be eminent domain. It could be, whoever owns the land could, there a lot can happen. Not, withstanding natural disaster. There's all
Mm.
sorts of things that can happen, right? But like just having all your ducks in a row before you build is something that I definitely preach to people now. And
Wow.
that doesn't necessarily have to look like ownership. It can look like trusts, and there's all sorts of different ways that people are doing it now with structures. What's the other one? Private membership associations. There's a lot of different ways that people are running communities on land that don't
Mm.
necessarily imply outright ownership, but having some sort of clear terms and even contracts. I mean, we had a contract and it didn't matter because she had more power than me at the end of the day.
Wow. And probably more resources and to go to court and just like bleed you dry.
100%.
And is this something that you teach in your school? Like, do you teach the land finding ownership process, the legal bits?
It's nothing that I have yet, because I'm like, there's so many people that know more about that than I
Mm.
do. It's just something I sort of informally give advice
Yeah.
about when people are like, okay, how do I open a trust? How do I start a trust? Is it revocable or is it irrevocable? And I'll share whatever I've learned from this process, but I don't feel qualified to necessarily be, teaching it.
Yeah, fair. So you give birth, and then how did you end up in this land?
So my partner Simon, his grandfather died during this process, and he had this parcel of land that used to be the elementary school for our county. And so right in the middle of our property, there's like a massive 20,000 square foot condemned building.
Hmm.
And this parcel of land was offered to anyone who wants it in his family of 7 children and who
Wow.
knows any, grandchildren, and nobody wanted it because it
Wow.
is so trashed. And when I saw it, I'd been plastic free for a decade. I was like, hell no, that's not my property. That's not my land. I said no, and nobody else was offering us land. And,
Yeah.
um, but it just seemed insurmountable.
Mm.
It literally a dump. I mean, the tax assessor assessed our property value at like $9,000 for 5
Wow.
acres. It's literally worth less like than the taxes. Anyway, back to like my whole the way that my pattern is, we were renting this little house, and when my son was like 3 months old, I woke up in the middle of the night like, and I was like, what are we doing? Like, we're renting again. Like, we have AC, we're in drywall. Like, we got off. And I
Mm.
understand why I got off, to have a safe, healthy home birth and to have a postpartum in a comfortable environment. And I have zero regrets. I'm so grateful, for that little rental house. But I told Simon, like, okay, let's do it. Like, let's say yes to the lands. And he got
And
up like
hope you
that
have a
moment and was like,
beautiful
okay, I'm going
day.
to go get started. And he literally did. We just got out here with the baby on our back and started picking up trash,
Mm.
and just, spent at this point, like, I don't know, probably 50K picking up trash.
What do you mean
We
spent 50K? Like to haul it to the dump and pay to get rid of it?
dumpsters, skid steers, manpower. I mean, it is real. And this is now I understand why people are hoarders and the houses just get condemned and nobody ever does anything with them, because it is so expensive to get rid of trash. And
Mm.
we're like, I mean, we haven't even touched the school yet.
Wow.
We've cleaned like four acres, and it's been an incredible process. It's really, the moral of the story is just do it. And I think that this is is an access point for millennials and people that don't think that they have the resources for land.
Mhm.
Find a condemned property, you know? Make sure that it's not like so condemned that you're never going to be able to rehabilitate it. But
Mm.
land is like bodies, like it can heal.
Mm.
Unless it's Chernobyl, like, and
Yeah.
even Chernobyl is healing, right? Like
Mm.
lands can heal. And this is testament to that. And, we got this cheap land and started paying the taxes on it and started picking up trash and using basically, all the profits from our construction company to do this.
Mm.
Uh, and we just keep going. And now we've rebuilt like so much soil. We have thriving gardens. We have so many volunteer plants that have come through and natives and pollinators. And it looks like $1 million property now,
Mm.
a year and a half.
That's so inspiring and exciting. Mm. Everybody's journeys are so different and unique, and you kind of do have to have, or I think having a spiritual practice or a relationship is so helpful, like having a clean body and a clean mind and a clean channel to receive the guidance so you know where to go has been really essential for me on my journey. I don't know how everybody else operates in the world, but that's been important for me. And I think, yeah, everybody is just going to receive different nudges and little intuitive impulses in different directions. So hearing your story and getting that vision in the hot tub of, I'm going to natural build and I don't even know what that is, but I see myself, and then chasing that relentlessly is such a beautiful invitation for people to just quiet and still and attune and listen to what we're supposed to do with our life on earth. And it's never too late. We get to listen at any moment. We can create that stillness, light a candle, and make a tea, and just kind of get quiet and listen for what the next best move is, or the next right move for us on this higher journey, or this earth journey. So I love hearing that.
Yeah. And just to echo what you said too, I mean, a lot of people I think one thing that I witness a lot of people struggling with is the clarity, the vision. Like, well, I don't know what to do. I've never felt that strongly about anything, right? And that's when you go to the mountain. That's when you go back and you look for the vision, and you sit and you wait and you just stop doing whatever the hell you're doing, and you sit under a tree and you wait for the vision. And sometimes you just sit there and you just wait. When I moved to New York, it was the same way. I moved to New York on a vision, and I didn't have a job. And I sat under a tree in Tompkins Square Park for like a month, just meditating until Rachel Comey, the brand, called me to come and work for them. And I just sat there, and it was almost like it was like a protest, like sometimes you have to protest the bullshit that you not get so sick of whatever it is that you're sick of, and say no more and just sit until the next thing comes through. And if you get quiet enough and you get curious enough and you can practice non-attachment to whatever it is that you are currently doing, then maybe something will come through, and you really have to act on it. Like, to have conviction is it responds to action. I've always been able to just like commit and do it. But
Mm.
if I know that's something that a lot of people struggle with. And I think you just have to like keep moving towards it, even if you're unsure.
Mm. And I feel like something like, as I've been in this softening chapter of trying to be less rigid, um, less controlling, I'm realizing that my approach to plastics and things and activism was so like urgent, aggressive, and all in, and that is effective, on a certain level. But now I'm showing up and I'm looking at it as devotion. I'm consistent, and I'm showing up and allowing my lifestyle and my approach to my parenting and my approach to my co-parenting and my approach to how I'm showing up in the world is I'm allowing it to be fluid and natural and organic, instead of just like always in this box. I think that can also be helpful, like know yourself enough to know how you need to approach and make something happen, and just be devoted, just commit and honor and sit under the tree.
And it's a balance. Sometimes in our life, we have to be more masculine. We have to pull that out. And then other times it's a time to be more feminine. There's different
Mm.
eras of everything. And understanding when you need to be in what state is
Mm.
And, you
It's
know,
art. It's an art.
it is hard because it's easy to get stuck in the masculine of do, 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 and action,
Mm,
action, action, action when it's not always the most effective thing. It's,
mm,
sometimes it's more effective to play, to dance, to
mm,
network, to socialize. Sometimes that's just as effective as, boots on the ground. We kind of need to do both to,
mm,
and that's very much been informed my journey too. Where everybody that I've met, um, and all of my stories, I think, require both the masculine and the feminine showing up and knowing when to be in what.
mm. And thank goodness we have both. Okay, so the school. Can you just give us an overview of the different things that you teach and maybe like an offering or some little tidbit that people could maybe implement today or, a little teaser for the different things that you offer?
Sure. We teach workshops twice a year. We have a spring semester and we have a fall semester, and we teach natural building. So we teach cob and adobe and lime plaster and lots of other modalities as well. Hempcrete, ferrocement, light straw lime, light straw clay, clay plaster, earthen floors, natural pigments. And so my husband is a third generation natural builder, probably farther back than that. But as far as like where he directly downloaded the skills, were from his grandfather and his father. And so he's been, building adobe and doing lime plaster his entire life. And he is one of the most renowned builders for this in the country. And I don't know, maybe the world. It's hard to say because there's a lot of natural builders that aren't on Instagram.
Mm.
In other countries. But anyway, so we really teamed up in this endeavor. When we first met, when I first went off grid and I was living on this ranch. I didn't have a kitchen and I wanted an oven. And so I started trying to figure out, what natural builders in the area could help me build a cob oven. And so I was introduced to Simon. And he came out over the course of, 3 weekends. We built this beautiful cob oven, and then he told me he was in love with me. And I put him off for like a good year.
Wow.
I was very much I felt the connection, but I was like, I have something to prove to myself. Well, knowing too that like when you have a man in your life, you're like, oh, can you just do it? I think something inside me knew that like I would defer the learning if I had such a capable man in my life. So the Realness Preserve is a 501c3.
Just wanted to say thank you much for sharing. I really wanted to know that story. So thank you for sharing that. That was like so cool. It's so interesting. Okay, Realness Preserve.
So, well, anyway, after we finished the oven, I said we should start a company and call it Texas Cob Company. And that did end up coming true, 2 years after that. And so this land that we're on is the Realness Preserve. And really, the land that I lost was also the Realness Preserve. And I thought the Realness Preserve died with the land, but it didn't. It like just went. It just continued on. It revived itself here. We didn't even know that we were going to call this land that. So one day, Simon, when we were building something and like when it was done, he was like, this is the Realness Preserve. And I was like, you're right. This is the Realness Preserve. So the Realness Preserve is an entity embodied in this land, currently living on this land. And we're a 501c3 nonprofit for education. And then our courses are led by Texas Cobb, so Simon and our natural building crew. And that's where we teach all of the building. So we really specialize in, not just DIYers and enthusiasts, but a lot of our audience is actually industry professionals, general contractors, interior designers, engineers, architects, professionals in the industry that want to learn how to transition their businesses to healthier models, to healthier materials. And a lot of it is inspired, I would say, by mold.
Okay.
A lot of people are dealing with mold sickness, and then that's how they find us, and that's how they find this work. And contractors and designers want to be able to offer healthier materials and healthier guarantees to their clients. And if you can say, hey, this is a building that's never going to mold, that's a big deal to somebody who's had mold sickness before.
We have that a lot in our region. Why doesn't it mold?
Lime plaster doesn't mold. So lime is antifungal.
Wow.
It kills it. It can't.
So good.
Cannot.
Genius.
Um,
Okay.
And so I do all the hosting at our workshops, the cooking. I organize the event, I produce the event, and Simon and the crew teach. And it's an immersive experience. It's really a retreat. So people come out for anywhere from 3 to 5 days and camp the whole time. And we wake up together, we have coffee and breakfast together. They learn. They come back for lunch. And then, they go back for the second half of class, and then we dine together, and then we go to the river together, and then we have live music and campfire, and we do it all again the next day. And it's just this sort of rolling festival of natural building and immersion into our lifestyle, which is cooking everything from scratch, gardening, and the homesteading factor of like just insourcing as much as possible. So it's not just how to build the house, it's how we live inside of the house. It's these same practices sort of mirrored kind of in the feminine as well, the cooking, the sewing, all the ways he builds the house and I, make it a home, that kind of thing.
Oh, gorgeous. And what are your thoughts on like this Tradwife, like politicization of homesteading and this like beautiful lifestyle kind of being co-opted by conservative right-wing politics?
It's really interesting. I mean, I've thought about it a bit. And I think one aspect that we're missing when we talk about that is, people think that tradwives are beholden to their husbands. And that was the case, for our grandmothers and, some of us, even our mothers, like women not having financial independence or financial security within their marriages, not knowing how, what the books looked like. But the ironic part with tradwives is, and I do not identify as a tradwife. I did a podcast with Alden Wicker, who wrote To Die For, and she called me the anti-tradwife, which I like that. Anyway, they're making their own money, and that's something like most of these tradwives that we are familiar with from social media way outperform their husbands financially. They're not fools. And if their marriage fell apart, they would be okay. And that's the difference between tradwives now and tradwives, in our grandmother's era. And so I think that it can be a really empowered stance. Of course, it's sort of there's a lot of overlap with MAGA and with Christianity and with religion, not just Christianity. And I can't speak to any of that. That's not really what we do. Simon will be the first to say that, we're trying to run a matriarchy out here. We're trying to keep it centered and children-centered. And a lot of times what that looks like is I'm not succumbing to my husband. I think the men around here would like a little bit more of that, but that's not what this is. I'm not a submissive woman. And I don't know that that's like I don't know what the interior lives of tradwives look like. I don't know if they're submitting in ways that are uncomfortable for them or where they have to give up a part of themselves. But I don't think so. I think they're probably pretty empowered financially, creatively. These are women who are at the forefront of their own lives.
Thanks for sharing. I'm curious about these trad women influencers. I'm not super well versed. Like I keep my Instagram feed pretty clean. And so it's more kind of something that I've been hearing about, and I'm curious to discuss and learn more because I think when you're sharing your lifestyle and how you regenerate the land and work together with your partner and grow food and preserve that food and clean the land of the garbage. Some these tradwife influencers, what are the messages that they're sending to people? Is it submit? Is it, they may be empowered or financially secure, but is the message that they're sending to their followers or to the world, is it as empowering as your message? And so for people that are interested in this way of life, maybe be discerning. It's like the left and the right went so far around that they're coming back together, but I'm not really seeing that togetherness. It doesn't, these lifestyle skills and experiences kind of overlap, but it doesn't feel unified. It's like this progressive environmentalism that misses when it comes to like the tradwife messaging. And I find that so confusing that there isn't an overlap or a coming together. That circle comes all the way around and then it misses.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to think about, who it's actually influencing and
Mm.
what it's influencing them to do. And I wonder if it isn't almost like an ad for marriage in some ways. So I've had a lot of like interns and apprentices come through, and a lot of them, I think specifically with like Gen Z, they've watched us work our asses off and they're like, you guys are just spinning the wheels. You don't have any more than we do. And I think a lot of girls and women would like to just like skip that whole part and just
Mm.
marry and just learn sourdough and just have kids. And we're kind of coming back full circle to that, where women are like, actually, I don't want to work. It looks like shit. You know, I don't want to do that. I just want to stay home and homestead. But what they're missing is like, I mean, we'll take Hannah from Ballerina Farms as an example. Like, she had an entire career before she got married and had a family, and she was an independent woman. And I don't think you can, that's a step that you can bypass. And I wouldn't be me, and this wouldn't be my path. This wouldn't be my life if I had bypassed that and just said, I'm just going to find a man and then I'll go and do this life. Right.
Mm.
I set out on my own to do it because I happened to be single. And I was like, I'm not going to wait for a man to live my dream.
Mm.
I'm not going to feel like I'm not enough or I'm incomplete. And finding somebody on your path while you're growing, where you're not just like renting a room in their life and you're both driving the train, I think avoids a lot of the like potential power dynamics where if you just marry into, you just get into a marriage where you're, you know, just sort of like insta trad wife and you're doing these skills and stuff, but you bypass the whole part where you, you know, you were independent and you figured out who you were before you entered into a relationship.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. Still find your purpose and your passion and your sense of self. Above all, know yourself. If you feel like being partnered and having a family, find someone on your path, not just
Yes.
to have a family. Um,
Not just as this goal, but find them on your path. Yeah.
yeah. Mm. Yeah, such beautiful advice because I think people get lost along the way with I have to work corporate or I have to buy land, I have to, I have to do all of these things before I do this. We get like order kind of mixed up
Yeah.
and then eventually, usually most people at some point in their journey are like, oh, I just need to know myself and what I actually want. Like I don't need to be ticking the boxes of like society or what this person or this group thinks is happiness. I need to find that for my own self. And where do I even begin? Oh, I need to sit at the tree or go to the mountain. Yeah, what a beautiful take on that. Yeah, kind of a confusing societal phenomena.
Yeah, it certainly is. You know, the way that this lifestyle, these skills have gotten tied up in like, you know, politics and in general, where there's nothing political about the garden or having
Yeah.
chicken.
Well, then ultimately, if slash when it all goes to shit, these women are going to be so valuable. These women with these life skills are going to, yeah, really be able to contribute. They've got knowledge, this old traditional knowledge to share. So if anything, that's really they're empowered in that sense, like with their hands and that wisdom. So that's not bad at all. The curious piece is this like submissive, the patriarchy, like just gripping and like holding and like grasping to hold its power and its place as the matriarchy like inevitably rises. And oh yeah, Tradwives just, stay in the kitchen and don't have a career, that piece. Yeah, I think we really have to be discerning and aware of that narrative and hold it and observe and acknowledge and yeah, make our own path again, like what you said. Okay, I do want a family. I don't want to work. But I still need to understand our family's finances and have a separate bank account, have savings and have, my own sense of security or, talk to a lawyer to just make sure that I'm totally covered. And when I sign the marriage contract, that it's like, just taking these, like you said, we don't trust anyone. It's like just being discerning and, thorough, I suppose, as we progress through life. And sometimes we have to learn the hard way, and that's a bummer. But if we can, yeah, try to cover as many bases as possible at the start and set up systems so that we're protected and that just gives us more freedom. Like how you guys are living. you're thorough in the beginning and in the designing, in the visioning, so that you can reap the benefits later. And it's that
Yes.
resilience and that, doing the hard thing first so that it's not harder later. Foresight.
Right. Right.
Mm,
Yeah. Setting up your infrastructure so that you understand. And so there's clarity, in the partnership of this is what it is, and not, being blindsided by, I don't know, it happens every day. It's not something that it's hard because, there's a lot of like conflicting narratives. I don't think hyper independence is good for any of us. And at the same time, I don't think that, I've never got the message like submit to my husband. It just hasn't happened that way for me. That's not my I don't think that's my work in the world. I come from a line of women that were severely disempowered by the men in their lives. And I every time it just makes me want to scream,
mm.
and so I picked a partner that can deal with me being powerful and bossy and you know.
And you'll raise a son that can hold that as well.
Yeah,
Mm,
exactly. Yeah, and mutual respect where it's we both hold the power.
mm.
And we take turns sometimes, right, with the power. But not being in a relationship that requires either of us to give our power away.
Yeah. And I think that's like the healing, the generational healing that we get to do too. Is like if you start to feel that ick or discomfort, or you're not able to voice, and this is like such a random tangent that I didn't expect to go on, but if you start to feel that, oh, I'm feeling smaller and I'm not able to speak up, then that's a sign, or that's a red flag that you need to address quickly, and just say, hey, this is feeling a little one-sided or something, yeah, if you can't speak up and have a conversation, then yeah, that might not be a healthy relationship anymore. Yeah. I don't know about you, but like majority of my network is women. And I think, yeah, sometimes we want this dream, and you want to find someone to walk it with, and we develop that discernment.
Mm-hmm.
Wrapping things up, I would love to hear a little bit of I'd love to hear a little bit of your take on like where the world is going, what you think about our civilization potentially collapsing, and um, the climate and American politics, and just like a little how you're feeling.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know. As I think this is intrinsic to homesteading, but I stay home and I kind of mind my own business, and I just stay busy with what we're doing. And, we're literally doing everything that we can. We're affecting change on every level that we know how to, and just continuing to try to scale that. And so that's how I sleep at night. That's how I um, feel good about operating in the world. And I think the difference between preppers and homesteaders is preppers are acting out of fear and
Mhm.
homesteaders are acting out of hope. I don't have a lot of fear for I mean, definitely I've had fear. I've had climate depression and climate anxiety at times. And, when you read the numbers and you're really, wrapped up in the science, it's easy to feel the fear around it. But, we were talking earlier about like intimacies with the land, and I have this feeling that like every time I plant something, it rains. It just keeps happening, and like having intimacies with the land and seeing direct ways that I am affecting change, that's like all I'm paying attention to right now.
Mhm.
And teaching my son to swim and to love the river, and to, I'm just, it's really more intimate to me now than like global. And I know that that gets passed off as privileged a lot, right? Like how privileged to just stay home and not participate in politics. But I already did that, and it didn't have the effect that I wanted it to. And like you said, I'm really glad that people are doing that. And I think it takes all like walks of life and all stages of life to do that, to affect change on every level. But this is the way that we're doing it now.
Mm.
And I feel good about that. I feel better about that than I have any other way that that I've done it.
Oh, I love that so much because again, so accessible. We get so overwhelmed with like the climate science. And, like I chased the plastic science all over the world for years. And it was, exciting and it was fun. And, I met with, I met with the top 10 polluters, the plastic manufacturers, and being on the edge, the driving force side of activism. And it was, so exciting and so enlightening, enlightening to be there and to be learning and to understand at that level. And also, yeah, different seasons, different chapters, and what you're doing now, empowering so many more people to have intimacy with the land. And now there's 4 acres that are thriving that used to be condemned, trash heap. And like the earth needs that, the earth needs to be regenerated like bit by bit by bit, not just like this, we banned plastics and now everything's okay. Well, that wouldn't even work because the plastic that was made is, we've got 100 years of plastic that's going to pollute and live on the earth forever. So, what can that really do except for, yeah, just the microclimate and the local movement. So thank you for that share. I feel relieved, and my being is kind of like just having this nice exhale of permission to keep things local. When we feel overwhelmed, go sit under the tree, go to the mountain, go to the ocean, go to some water, be with nature, but also just do what you can locally. It really matters. And yeah, it matters more than I think people realize. Mm.
For sure. There's a ripple effect that we will never know from just staying home and doing these practices at home. I forget which Stoic it is that says it, but something along the lines of, how dare you try to rule a kingdom when you can't rule your own home?
Mm.
And I really just, focused on what we can do here, and, using the tools that we have now, the internet, to bring people here, but also to teach them from afar. Like, these are the swaps, or these are the alternatives. These are your choices. And
Mm.
through the construction company, I feel like we really have a lot of potential too, to teach, because home building is a massive industry, and it's incredibly dirty. It's incredibly polluting and toxic. And I felt good about fashion, the way that we home our bodies, but this was just like another zoom out for me about housing.
Mm.
And now that we're like tackling this locally and becoming, known in our area as natural builders, and that we can provide this to, to anyone who's building a home or even renovating a home. I feel really good about the scale that we're able to work at now.
Mm. Gosh, I could ask you, I have so many questions. Like I want to ask you about fast fashion and also like the housing crisis and just like, how this is a scalable solution, with the economy. Is there anything that you feel like we haven't touched on that you want to speak to?
Well, one thing that comes to mind is, I'm sure that you've heard a lot too, or like, why does it matter if I quit plastic, right? Like, what effect does it have? But the effect that it had on my life was clearing the consumer fog. And that wasn't, I thought I was doing it for environmental reasons originally, but about 6 months in, I literally just, it was like the sun came out, and the fog cleared, and I saw myself as a creator in the world and not as a consumer anymore. And everything that, I've created now, I think, is a direct result of quitting plastic, to be honest.
Mm.
I don't think I would have had the audacity. Like, that was the first step for like breaking up with not just consumerism, but with the status quo of the world.
Mm.
The status, just like the default. And it allowed me to see things in a completely different way that I don't know if it was like the microplastics leaving my body, or or if it was just this truly like this consumer fog of feeling like every time you run out of something, you have to run out and get it, right?
Mm.
Breaking up with that approach to life and trying to just insource as much as possible, and reach out to the local community instead. Like, okay, who's making cheese in my area and who's selling meat that I can, plugging in, creating a network has been so critical also to this journey. The network, the community, the local effect. And also just, yeah, being designing the world that I want to see and not just accepting, well, this is what's available, thinking outside the box, I think was a direct result of breaking up with plastic.
Totally. Especially now. I mean, the amount of plastic that humans engage with on a daily basis is, yeah, it's the volume is huge. So, but saying no to that is, you're right. It's like this. You have to get resourceful and creative, and it's this brain activity. It's this mindset that you're like, oh, I'm not going to do it that way, and everybody else is doing it that way. So I really have to create the new path for myself, and it's unique to each of our lives, and it's so empowering and it's so fun. I found it this creative exercise of, oh my gosh, hey, no, and it's like breaking other people's brains too, because they're like, You don't want the smoothie in the plastic cup? That's all we do." And it's like, well, that's not what I do. And they're like, why? Like, what do you mean?
And
And
that's the ripple effect. You don't know,
yeah,
and the people behind you in line witnessing that moment too. At first, they're triggered and annoyed, but the trigger's
totally.
the, they go home and they're like, wait,
Yeah.
but at some point, like, the awakening isn't comfortable and it is very triggering. And I view every moment that we're like, no, no, not that. I want people around me to get to witness it. I like
Mm.
try to get witnesses.
Yeah, yeah, it's so true. That's their brain kind of opening to a new thing. And you're right. People are, especially after COVID, I remember people being so uncomfortable with me bringing my own cup, or, having this boundary. And I was like, look, I'm your customer. Like, I don't know what I don't know how, you're confused about the dynamic here. Like, I'm paying you, and this is
Yeah,
what I want. I don't have to come here. Um,
right.
and
Yes.
it's this like kind of like, it's kind of like a humanizing experience too, because it's like, hey, I'm not just a consumer. I'm not just like a mindless consumer. Like, this transaction that we're having, do you want to participate in it with me? Like, are you present? Are we here together? Because if we are, this is what I'm asking. And if you really feel me and see that, it's a beautiful, this could be a beautiful interaction. And if you don't, no worries. Like, sometimes we're just not, we can't see what we can't see, and that's definitely happened to me on my journey, for sure, that I just like wasn't, people would be telling me things and I just didn't have the awareness. I didn't have, my brain wasn't open to that. And now it is open to different things. So, it's like, I remember early days in, I think it was like a Greenpeace training or workshop, or maybe it was the Patagonia book, Grassroots Activism. It's like the red light, green light, like the traffic light signal. It's like, if you encounter someone, and if they're, excuse me, if they're, if they just aren't open, their awareness isn't open to it, and they're just like, that's a red light. Like, don't waste your time. If you come, if you come to a green light, it's like, oh, my people, like, yeah, like, you could get into like a full on hours of conversation, like, oh, it feels so good. And the ones that we love and then we look for are those yellow lights that are kind of like, maybe like uncomfortable at first, because it's breaking their routine, their little comfortable life that that they just like track along. It's like their comfort, and they're like, wait, I'm like, discomfort, because we're so not used to discomfort. So it's like holding them through that, holding your own self through your own discomfort of like, oh, I've upset them, like that little people pleaser in yourself that's like, oh, never mind. It's holding yourself through that and just being like, hey, this is why I'm doing it. And if they're like, oh, that's cool, there you go. Ripple effect.
Yep.
It's a powerful thing, and that's life changing. People don't, when you really think about it, it's like that could influence someone's entire life trajectory, and then they could end up marrying a natural builder and living on land and regenerating and having a school. Like, it's that.
It's true. We all start, the spark can happen for anybody, anywhere. And we're unknowingly, sparking people all the time. And
Mm.
one of my gigs in New York, I worked on the Madonna tour as a seamstress,
Wow.
and they provided lunch every day, and every day I would opt out because it was like just like takeout, and I would bring my own lunch and my containers. And like a couple weeks in, the producer was like, why don't you like eat what, why don't you just order the food? And I told him, and he was like, huh. And then literally the next day, he's like, okay, people, we're only going to order places now that do biodegradable packaging. Like, he literally went home. It dawned on him, and he like made the change. And that
Wow.
was hundreds of people that were
Wow.
that were involved in that decision, like that he affected. My
Yeah.
midwife was the same way. When I was looking for a midwife, I was calling around. I was like, this is going to be a hard one. I knew, like, I already knew that these
Yeah.
people are crazy. So I'm calling around trying to find somebody, and I'm like, okay, here's the kicker. Like, I want to have a plastic-free birth. And so all of them were like, yeah, that's not possible. It's not possible. And, when I talked to the midwife I ended up going with, she was like, that's not possible. And then I was like, okay, well, thank you anyway. She called me the next day and she was like, I couldn't stop thinking about what you said, like what you asked. And all I asked was like, I was like, I'm looking for a midwife for a home birth. Here's the thing. Like I'm plastic free. I don't think I'm going to feel comfortable with like a lot of plastic at my birth. And that's all I said. I didn't say why, I didn't say how. And she just, and then the next day she called and was like, let's do this.
Oh, wow. Yeah, people are inherently good. Like I believe that. I think that people you just don't know what you don't know. And this is why we do what we do. We have to
Yeah.
just keep sharing the message and talking about it and
Hold the line.
yeah, hold the line. Mm.
But
Oh my
softly,
gosh.
you're doing now, it's so funny you say balloons. My husband came home with balloons tied to my organic GMO home birthed baby, GMO free home birthed baby's wrist, and I'm like, what the hell are balloons doing? And he's like,
Have you learned nothing?
I throw them away. And I'm like, okay, all right.
What did he say?
He said they're secondhand. They were going to throw them away.
Yeah.
Like some
Great.
leftover, like half deflated birthday balloons.
Ugh. It's so hard with kids when they see it and like
Yeah.
trying to explain that this is that piece about like, is it too toxic to like prevent them? It's like I try to explain it as he gets older and has like a greater capacity for understanding, but sometimes it's like, oh, it's not worth explaining. I don't know how to.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
it's too complex of a concept for him. Um, okay, well, just to like wrap up, what are you reading or what are you learning or what are you inspired by these days?
Sure. Just continue to talk about my garden, but I'm just inspired by every day, I have a surplus of something and I'm like, okay, I'll like lose sleep over food waste. So I'm like, okay, I have to learn new recipes. I have to learn pickling. I have to learn fermenting. I have to learn canning. Just like that's something I love about this lifestyle, about homesteading and ranching and having um like a lot of living things, a lot of life on property, stewarding life, is that the to-do list just basically writes itself every day. You think you're going to do one thing, you wake up and you've got 100 cucumbers that need dealt with. There's a sick animal or the gates broke or whatever, and it's like, actually, that's what you're going to do today. And that I really love that because it keeps you like very dynamic. So, again, I feel like my life is like kind of small these days and I like it that way. And it's very, I'm not reading anything right now. I haven't really read since becoming a mother.
Yeah.
I don't do a lot of reading. He won't let me read, but he'll let me garden. I can literally garden for like 6 hours and cook. He'll like, those are the things he'll be in my flow with me and he loves to plant and harvest and chop and like, he'll do that with me all day long. And so those are the things that I do. I do whatever he'll let me do.
Mm.
you know? So yeah, I'm inspired by what's at hand, what the day demands, what the day calls for.
Mm.
Um, and I'm inspired by the kids continually too.
Mm.
We have a lot of kids out and all the time, and we do kids workshops and stuff. And I find their like receptivity to be so precious. I was just explaining to somebody earlier today, we were giving a tour and we did a kids cob workshop and they built their own playhouse. And it was so cute. And I was like, I don't know how this event is going to go. Like we could be left with like a pile of mud that's, in no way in shape of a house. But they killed it. They'd like go and they'd cob a little bit and then they'd like run off and play with somewhere else and they'd come back and cob. And the structure got done by the end of the day, just like if our construction crew had done it. And they had plenty of space for snacks and play and rest. And, they worked at their own rhythm and it was totally functional. It was totally efficient at the end of the day. That was really,
Wow.
That was really inspiring to me.
How old were they?
It was a mixed bag. I mean, there were newborns to like 16, I'd say.
Cool.
Yeah, there were like 50 kids here probably.
My gosh, amazing. Many hands.
Many hands and all the ages, different ages working together too is so
Mm,
precious to watch, like how the older kids naturally take care of the younger ones and the younger ones naturally, gravitate towards the older ones and
sweet.
that like the reciprocity that's built into humanity naturally. And I think that's something, we're naturalists. And so our whole point out here is to just steward the natural world, steward natural patterns. And
Mm,
I'm constantly inspired by, oh, that's not just the way that I am. That's the way that this is. That's the way that, we're not, especially like as a woman without a mother that's alive. I had some trepidation in becoming a mother, like who's going to teach me?
mm,
And what I learned pretty quickly on is like nature is going to teach me how to be a mother. Like you get it directly from source
mm.
still, you know?
Oh, beautiful. Mm. And I know we're ready to wrap, but what do you say to people that just don't feel like they've got gardening in them? If they just are like, that just doesn't feel like me. It's like, of course, they've probably been like um raised inside indoors, in inside under floral lighting and breathing processed air or whatever. And it just feels like that doesn't, I don't know how, like, what do you say to people that are just like, that just feels so, I couldn't live on a cot by a fire.
Yeah. Whatever hard skills call to you, I would say. Like we've really kind of, I think, come out of balance between hard and soft skills. And I think people are really just like want to do soft skills now. They just want to be influencers or work on computers or use AI. And even like in the permaculture community, it's too reliant on soft skills. We're throwing around these words and concepts without realizing, like, oh, that just means pushing a wheelbarrow. And if that's not your flavor, like maybe it's sewing, or
Mm,
maybe it's sculpture, or maybe it's welding, or I don't know, just like learn a hard skill. The like visceral somatic wisdom that comes through when we're practicing hard skills is what we're after. It doesn't even really matter what the hard skill is. It's learning something where we're guided by the process and we're learning directly from the thing that's like in our hands, you
mm.
know?
And is sourdough and cooking, are these hard skills?
Those are hard skills, 100%. All of those. Anything where we're producing anything with our hands is a hard skill. Yeah.
Mm, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Arielle. Like it's been so nice to meet you and chat. And yeah, I've been following your journey and watching um, the land trials and yeah, and the outdoor bathroom being built in the little moon window and just like all these beautiful things that I'm like, oh, it is Instagram can romanticize these things, but you've kept it real the whole time sharing, all aspects of this journey. And I'm so grateful for that, that you've been authentic and honest with all the ups and the downs, because that really is what it's all about, is facing each day, each challenge and following through. So thanks for sharing your story. It's been such a pleasure and an honor to chat with you.
Likewise, Catherine, thank you so much for having me. And yeah, it's sort of surreal. Like I said, I've been following you for a long time too. And you were the first plastic free person that I met when I went plastic free. And
Mm,
so you've just been this real role model for me on my path. And it's really cool to have this conversation with you today.
thanks so much, babe. Well, enjoy your evening with your family. And yeah, just looking forward to coming and visiting you one day.
Open gate policy. I will open the gate for you.
Oh, thank you so much. I love that. I love gates. I love going through gates. That's my hard skill. No. All right. Thank you so much, darling. Chat
Yeah.
soon.